Well, hello. Welcome to episode 2 of what we're calling the Mind Wars Forum. This is a series to bring Mind Wars and historic related content to our membership. And in light of the coronavirus, in light of the fact that we can't do a lot of the things that we want to do in Matewan, we want to bring a little content to the public. And with me today is Academy Award-winning actor Chris Cooper. And since we are talking this summer about the centennial of the Battle of Matewan, Mr. Cooper here, of course, played Joe Kenehan in the film Matewan in 1987. And a lot of other films. I'll get out of the way that you're also in my favorite Western of all time, which is Lonesome Dove. And I don't know if you still have people to talk to about Lonesome Dove.
Sure do. Sure do. It's a fave. And and on occasion, go down to Texas. That cast from Lonesome Dove, they're like kings down there. It's so precious down there. And went to the, last year, went to the, gosh, I can't remember how many year reunion. No, it was more than that, about 3 or 4 years ago. So it may have been the 30th or 40th reunion, something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember.
A lot of the folks made it out from the film, made it out.
Wow, yeah. Yeah, it's top to bottom one of the best casts, ensemble cast of any Western ever made, I think.
It was pretty nice. It was
a
huge break for me. We'll get to that, I guess, if you want, down.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks for joining me here and for talking to me. I know that it's pretty crazy right now.
Yeah.
So, Matewan. I know this we just had 3 years ago the 30th anniversary of Matewan, and we had John Sayles into Charleston here, and we packed a theater twice in a day. And it's still a real popular film here, and it's one of the things that really put a spotlight on a type of history that has been left out of our schools, that we're trying to honor.
Sure.
So how did you get involved in this? How did you meet John Sayles? I know you've collaborated with him a lot in the past, and how did that start?
I think it's pretty interesting, kind of lengthy, but I can shorten it. My wife and I, Marianne is an actress as well. So, make a long story short, she answered NYU film students ad in, her name was Nancy Savoca, and she was a junior at NYU. Okay. So Nancy was doing her half-hour black and white sound sync piece, and Marianne was hired for the lead role. Marianne and Nancy became pretty good friends, and in Nancy's senior color half-hour sound sync script, both Marianne and I played a couple in that film. So move on a little bit, and Nancy Savoca and her mate, Richard Gay, are going to do a film and trying to raise money for a film called True Love. And they had just enough money to put together a trailer. And while shooting the trailer, Maggie Renzi, John Sayles' mate, offered to cook and feed the cast and crew. And my wife joined Maggie, and they became friends. And I think Rich knew down the road that John wanted to do this film called Matewan. And I think it was Richie that said to John, when the time comes, when audition time comes, take a look at Cooper.
Mm-hmm.
And so he did. And went to Midtown, New York auditions, and worked my tail off for the, scenes that we were to read. And felt pretty good about the audition, but then never heard anything.
Mm.
And then down the road, find out that John and Maggie lost the financing for Matewan, So they had to do another lower budget film, and I think that turned out to be Brother from Another Planet.
Okay.
But when John got the, oh man, this goes, it goes on and on. So I got this job in the 80s. They used to have this exchange, and I was doing theater. I was content with doing theater. So the UK and America did this exchange of actors for different productions. And I was lucky enough to get cast in Tennessee Williams' Sweet Bird of Youth production, directed by Harold Pinter, and had Lauren Bacall as the aged actress in the stage play. And I got to play Stuff the bartender, and understudied the lead role in the play. And that play went on for like 7 months, but in the middle of the run, I got a call from John that he wanted me to come back, and he wanted me to read with other women that he wanted to cast in the film. So I grabbed the plane after the Sunday matinee, and that meant I had Sunday night, all of Monday, and Tuesday to get back to Curtin at 7 or 8 o'clock. So needless to say, that was pretty frantic. I flew back here. Rich Gay picked me up at the airport, brought me to the audition, took me back to the airport, flew back to the UK for a Tuesday night performance, never realizing, obviously, I hadn't slept a wink since Sunday. And damn near fainted during the when I was on stage. I was so whacked. But wow. Anyway, down the road, found out that I got the role of Joe Kenehan.
Tell them how you got.
Well, so Matewan was taking a lot out of you before it even started filming.
In the best way, man. In the best way.
Yeah. So you're playing a union organizer, and what did you think when you first read the script? Had you read the script at this point, or was?
Yeah, I had read the. I think John gave us all the full script to read. I don't think it was just sides for the auditions, but I had done. Like I said, I was very content doing theater, and I wasn't anxious. Matter of fact, I told my people who were pushing me to get involved with film and TV that I just didn't feel ready yet. Mm-hmm. But when Matewan came, and given that I've read hundreds of plays, I think I had a good sense of what makes a good script. And this is the kind of film that got me interested in the business. It wasn't special effects and green screens and explosions. It was human behavior. That's what got me interested in the business, to begin with. And as a first film for a young actor, you couldn't beat it. It had everything you could possibly want. Great history. As you mentioned, a history that America is totally unaware of. Mm-hmm. A period in our history where it was the first time that the government turned its guns on its own people. Mm-hmm. And, a great dramatic story. John, of course, loves his history. So it had every element that I could imagine.
Now, was this the first time you'd ever read about this, the Mind Wars? Was there any time that you may have heard of it before?
Hadn't heard a thing about it. Mm-hmm. Hadn't heard a thing. No.
Yeah, it's even I was pretty young when I heard about it the first time, but I live here, and
Mhm.
my family was involved in it. So it's something that the film really brought a lot of attention to it, and specifically to this event in the wars. Now you're playing a union organizer. Well, I remember watching the film for the first time. I was a kid when the film came out, but in the scene where your character first enters, you're riding a train into town, and you've got a copy of the Fayette Tribune that you're reading through.
Mhm.
And I always remembered that because that's an actual paper. It's a paper that I've actually gone through in microfilm and looked for sources. And just that attention to detail there at the very beginning, that it's an actual paper that was prominent in the coal fields during that time period. I love that, those little things that a lot of people may not miss, but adds to that authenticity.
And imagine too, from the very smallest to a nice newspaper, to that train, getting the logistics of getting that train on John's budget was a masterstroke, and certainly a great introduction for any character is to come in on that, coming on that train.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's so much a part of the landscape and soundscape of West Virginia too. I grew up hearing coal trains all the time. In fact, a train just went by as we were talking
Sure.
just now. So it's
So when I came to, I was living in New York, and so to get out there, I decided, well, okay, I'm playing Joe Kenehan, then I'm going to take the train, and from Penn Station to where they dropped me off. I think they made a little special stop at Fayette to, let me get off. But riding that train along the river was one simple step in my prepping for this character of Joe Kenehan. And then when the train stopped and I saw the old depot and the facades of the general store and all that the crew had done to dress up the town, it was like stepping back in time. It was beautiful.
Yeah, tell me about that. Did you have anything you remember from that train trip? Any impressions? Was that your first time coming into West Virginia?
It was, I
By
believe
train.
it was. And, it's childish and it's almost childish. It was the first step. I mean, besides doing the homework on the character and doing the whole research, getting on that train was my first phase of Kenehan's character and his experience.
That's great. You've played a lot of different types of characters, throughout the course of your career. How's playing a union organizer unique? If so, or is there anything specific that's unique about that to you?
Well, I think I knew that the question was coming, and I must say that what I don't like to do is repeat myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been happily given the stamp of character actor. And it's clear to me that every character has has something unique about them. I look at Matewan now, and I think of him. I look like a baby. So young looking. So how seriously could these miners take Joe Kenehan at such a tenderfoot, but that was the competition. I had to work to, gain their trust and their faith. So it's a very, it's a question that is kind of hard to answer. It's been so many years, but, and it was my first role in a film. So there was a lot to learn. It was a wonderful time spending time with this master of light, Haskell Wexler, the DP of this. Okay. And I learned real quickly to conserve energy because I was so excited. That first week of shooting, I never went to dressing room. I just followed the crew for the next setup, and it oftentimes didn't even involve me. I was just so knocked out by this is how they make film, and had 1,000 questions for Haskell about, having worked with Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton and Henry John. Oh God, who's that actor that played Lincoln?
Oh, Daniel Day-Lewis?
No. Much farther back. The Henry Fonda. Yeah, okay. Working with Henry Fonda and asking Haskell, when you're shooting, where should I be, and working around the frame of a camera, and just 1,000 questions. I'm jumping ahead. I don't even know what I'm talking about, but it was first time around. I learned you better settle down and start, reserve some energy because you got a long way to go.
Yeah. Well, it's great that your first experience, though, was doing this really unique story. So here you are in West Virginia, and obviously not a lot of films get made here in West Virginia. And what was it like? What do you remember from being there? I know that there were a lot of locals that participated.
Yeah, we had huge cast of extras that we needed. So the one thing that came to mind immediately was on our day off. It was a Sunday, and some of us wanted to go to church, and so there was one fella in the cast, big, huge man. He was a preacher, but he also delivered dynamite to the active coal mines around the area. And so as it turned out, about 10 or 12 women from the cast and crew and 4 or 5 guys, and I tagged along. And we went to they had directions to this church where this gentleman was also going to preach that day. So we got there a little bit late, walked into the church, back of the church, and all we see are the heads of young women, girls, and no men. And we're saying, that's a little odd, what's going on? And asked some of the ladies next to us, they said, oh, men aren't here. This is the first day of squirrel season.
Oh, yeah.
So this was a serious day for them, So,
yeah, that's great. Yeah, I can see that. Having grown up here, I can see that happening.
And then early on, Maggie really sets the atmosphere for the shoots. And she was wonderful about going that extra step for the actors. She would, she'd give me a call and say, we got to go visit some people in the holler here, not too far away. And as it turned out, these women, good gosh, they're gone by now, but they were well into their 80s back then.
Mm-hmm.
But they were apparently witnesses to the Matewan shootout. So it was great to touch base with the real thing, you know.
Yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, you're right. Many of those aren't around. They were doing an oral history project in the late 80s that the film helped inspire, where they collected a lot of old interviews of the people who were in the town and people that were bystanders at the fight. So, yeah, that's great that you got to meet that. You know, one of my favorite scenes, and the specific scene is on YouTube of the film, and it's got tons and tons of views on it. It's one of my favorite scenes in the film, and it's one of the things that really captures what the film does accurately about the capturing that moment in time. And that is, you had these native mountaineers that were making up about half of the workforce, and then you had all these immigrant miners that were in. Lots of Italians, lots of Hungarians, lots of East Europeans that spoke their own languages. Some coal camps had as many as 24 languages that were spoken in those little cramped little places. And then you had all this influx of African-American miners. And there's a scene where James Earl Jones's character, Few Clothes, which is based on a real person, Few Clothes Johnson. We've got a picture of him in the museum. But James Earl Jones comes in and he wants to be a part of the union meeting. And the other guys, the natives, have a lot of mistrust. They don't know what to make of him. And James Earl Jones, he takes the most offense to the word scab.
Yeah. Jumps out at you, doesn't it? It really does. Yeah.
Yeah.
You call him anything, but don't call him scab.
Right. And your character comes out and makes a big speech about how if you're going to have a union, these groups have to come together. Mm-hmm. And that was a big part of that movement. Is the reason it was a successful working class movement is because these different groups, immigrants, blacks, poor whites, were all coming together in a common cause and overlooking their differences. And when you think of rural West Virginia, Appalachia, a lot of times they don't think about that history of these different groups working together. Mm-hmm. That the union brought in. United Mine Workers was the first to do that. Do you think there's some relevance today that we could learn something from those messages in that film?
Oh yeah, I mean a whole lot, and don't go too deeply political, but what I've seen now with this recent event of the quarantining and the moves to block immigration and send folks back. Now we're seeing we really need those pickers in the fields.
50% of
and
50% of doctors are in.
Well, Marianne's just whispering to me, 50% now, 50% of doctors now are immigrants. Mm-hmm. We got a lot of work to do. And I don't know if it's getting any better or worse, but there's going to be, once we get over the hump of this, there's some reckoning.
Yeah, and there's been a resurgent labor movement in the United States. That the West Virginia teachers strike spread to a bunch of other states. 2018, Oklahoma, California, teachers all over the country. And I don't know if you noticed, but a lot of West Virginia teachers were wearing the red bandana that the coal miners wore during the mine wars, and many of them evoked that history on the picket line. I
belong to 3 unions, and they've been good to me.
Yeah, and it's we're finding out that workers don't have a lot of that power that they used to have, and we're seeing a resurgence of that kind of fight. You're seeing essential workers now for Amazon talking about strikes, going on strikes, trying to get a little bit of leverage. So
John would have a good answer as to why this is coming back. I don't know the answer, but it confounds me how somebody can tell me, but it confounds me how we have so lost the power of the unions over the years.
yeah, well, we're hoping to try to keep the spirit alive by keeping the history alive. And this was your first film, and did you think when you were making it that 33 years later you would still be talking about it, or that it would resonate?
Yeah, because as I said early in this, and when we were talking, this is the kind of film that interested me. This is the film that got me interested. Great piece of history that, once again, we know very little about. I thought I thought I had it made. I thought my career was made doing this film, and I must say, I mean, I didn't get another job for a year and a half after Matewan came out, so I have no idea how many folks saw it or how popular it was, but I thought, yes, 30 years, 40 years from now, we'll be talking about this film. Cause the end result, I mean, it was a dream come true for a first time film actor.
Yeah, and the themes are very relevant today.
Yeah.
Labor, union, immigrants, racial issues, it's all there. And the industrial struggle, class division. And it's something that's still dear in the hearts of many of the people that live here. So,
in so many respects, through John's career, my wife and I have said so many times, the only problem with John Sayles' work is that he's always a little bit ahead of the time.
Yeah, we have to catch up to them.
Yeah,
sometimes. Well, I'm thrilled that you joined me today for this little chat. I don't want to take up too much of your time. For everybody that's watching or that will be watching this, I want people to know that there will be at some point a link somewhere where people can go and visit the museum online and become members, buy a t-shirt at our online shop, or donate to the museum itself. I want to thank you so much for joining me and talking a little bit about this history and how that it impacted you. And it's still important. This past May, we gave John and Maggie a tour of Matewan, and if you guys ever want to come down,
we will.
Let us know.
We get over this hump, we'll be down there, and we'll celebrate next year.
Great. We'll hope to see you there. Hope to give you a tour. We'll fix you some cornbread and and have a good time. So thanks so much for joining us.
All right. So thank you for having me. Appreciate it. Thank you.
And stay safe.
Okay.